What's good, guys? How you doing? Today's video is a little fun, if you couldn't already tell, because I'm already having fun. But I'm also having fun because I'm right. I'm not going to go on some narcissistic rant of how I'm a marketing genius and I know how to predict the industry, because I'm not. I'm the exact opposite. I'm just some dickhead with the camera. And because I'm just a dickhead with the camera, I don't think any of you guys are going to be surprised by the announcement that Indian just made that yes, the Indian Scout FTR1200 will indeed be going to production. Now, I find that exciting for a lot of reasons. Just seeing everything that the bike has been, you know, everything that they've shown of that bike so far has just been gorgeous. Including the entire frame. It's kind of got like that, you know, how Ducati Monsters do with their exposed red frame. It's kind of got that thing going for it, and I kind of really appreciate that. I mean, I know it's supposed to be a bare bones kind of racing bike, but it's elegant. I can't say for sure that it's the exact same thing that they had the FTR1200 engine in for the race bike, but I can say if you put them right next to each other, you could fool me. So one of the things I'm really excited for is the idea that maybe they may release the bike as is. And I think that's actually going to be one real big thing to look at in terms of how the bike is in the marketing right now versus how the bike is going to be once it's fully out of production. And so today I want to talk about a few things that I enjoy, I really like, or I love about the Indian Scout FTR1200. One thing I can notice right off the bat, as I already said, aside from the looks, the suspension. Oh my god. So the Indian Scout FTR1200 has full Öhlins suspension. I believe it has a monoshock Öhlins rear and what appear to be Öhlins fronts. Adjustable or not adjustable, I can't say for sure. Hey, you guys notice this area over here? This is where I did my exhaust comparison. They blocked it off. You can check that out up here. Guess they didn't like me too much being back there on my bike. Anyways, what's another great thing about the Indian Scout FTR1200? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited as heck about just the way they've made it. Just the way that they've made this thing look. I mean, it's gorgeous. Look at all of the carbon fiber detail all over the bike. And I can see that I don't know if that's real carbon fiber, but I can say that it looks, oh, it looks just right. It looks just right in how it covers the water cooling system, which doesn't seem to stick out too far. It looks like it goes with the rest of the bike perfectly. Another thing I love, going along with the carbon fiber, look at the headlight bezel. I mean, it looks like they just straight up took one of these awesome LED lights that I have in my Scout installation vid up here and just plopped it right on in, but formed carbon fiber right around it. Like, the bezel around it makes it look flush, flat, but aimed correctly at the road, such that it mimics the front of a true racing machine. Did I mention the colors? They're sticking with classic Indian red, a lot of carbon fiber, and they're going with the engine paint scheme of the Scout 60, using the full-size Scout engine. I love that. I wish they had done that with my bike. I love the fully blacked out engine. It's just, it's gorgeous, it fits. Man, this bike is looking great. So here's another big pro, which I'm not all surprised at. In fact, I'm very glad they went with it. But the final drive has been changed from a belt drive to a chain drive from the normal Scout. I say changed from, like, as if the normal Scout was the base of this bike to begin with. No, it's not. This is a purely race thoroughbred machine, built for one purpose and one purpose only: to race on a dirt track. That is what this machine is for. Do not kid yourself into thinking that this bike is going to be the most practical daily driver or anywhere near in relation to what a dirt bike can do off-road in terms of its suspension travel. So yes, there is expensive Öhlins suspension on it from what I can tell, but I guarantee you, you will get probably twice the amount of suspension travel from traditional dirt bike forks. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that as a popular modification at some point. But now we need to get into the cons of this bike. And My cons actually aren't really all that numerous. Mostly speculative at this point because, I mean, they just announced the bike. Who knows what it's going to be like. But we got to talk about the biggest problem I think a lot of first-time consumers of Indian products face. And that is exhaust heat. Now, many Scout owners and actually even the big twin Indian Thunderstroke riders, they all have like heat shields, like these little gross, ugly leather flap thingies that they put right beneath the gas tank. Not a fan. And I'll say this, when I first got the Scout, I noticed the heat myself. But as I've said in previous videos, how are you going to avoid heat problems just warming your leg up a little bit when you're cramming twice the amount of horsepower as any other cruiser on the road, you know, in this sort of class? If you guys take a look at the FTR1200, currently as it stands, its exhaust system, beautiful, looks great. And as is classic to the Scrambler style exhaust, you have those two pipes coming close together with some nice added extra heat shielding. I question the efficiency of those heat shields to actually do their job in making sure the rider does not experience an excessive amount of heat on their leg. So not only are you still sitting with your thigh right above the rear cylinder of the bike, but you're also sitting right there with the exhaust in your crotch. For a lot of flat track racers, I don't see that ever being an issue. Mainly because A, it's a different engine, but also because they're standing on their rear pegs quite a bit. Well, at least a lot of motocross racers are. Flat trackers are more, yeah, they're kind of more sitting on the bike, but they're sitting with their legs out and touching the ground to make sure that they can turn tightly. And since we're talking about the position of the rider and questioning whether or not that is more or less going to be a friendly street sort of thing, and this is really going to be showing my ignorance here because A, I've never sat on a flat track bike, so insult away. But just for my opinion, I think the stance of the machine is going to be very important in determining how riders feel comfortable enough to actually pay for this machine. It's not a cruiser. A lot of cruiser fans are going to be looking at this bike, and it's going to be different. This is not going to be a cruising style seating position. Me personally, if you've checked out some of my previous videos talking about my Scout, you'll notice that I'm talking about kind of wanting a different stance on this bike because this bike it's a rocket ship, you know, and it's just so fast, and I like being able to do this. And then just sitting into the corners and like treating this thing as if it were a cafe racer, you know? But it's not a cafe racer, the Indian FTR1200. It's not a cafe racer. It's going to have a standard looking stance, and the seating is going to be important too. All the seating I've seen in the pictures are not that comfortable looking, but again, nobody should be buying this machine expecting a long-range touring bike. This is going to be a straight-up, around-town, off-road, whenever-you-want hooligan-style bike, and I'm actually really excited about that. And so this next section of the video, I think I want to talk about the risks being taken here. Indian, if you're listening, first off, I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to your customer base. But mostly this is going to be my question for the market in general on this thing. So, I think the reason that Indian has been waiting a year to basically put this out, they've been teasing this bike for quite a while. You know, are we gonna make it? Are we not gonna make it? We love flat tracking, we brought it back, we're dominating in the sport. Would you guys be interested in buying? I don't know. This bike, I think a lot of people are asking for, and I can't help but take a look at what happened not too long ago. I think it was 5 years ago in 2013, where Harley Davidson had canceled the production of their XR1200 flat tracking bike. I mean, that's kind of where that came out of. Indian's really new to the game nowadays, you guys, but they dominated the sport back then. They just got back into it again. They've been doing great, but Harley's been taking those poles for quite a while in the interim. Everyone loves being able to go off-road and around and all that, so naturally people have made some really good looking Harley flat tracking cafe racer style bikes to rip around in the dirt on. I've seen some beautiful ones. But let's talk about Harley-Davidson actually putting those out. Because with the XR1200, that was kind of their last iteration, final ditch attempt at marketing a bike like that. I don't think it did too well. Now, there are multiple reasons for that. One of the reasons was that it didn't even release in America until a year after it released everywhere else. And Harley people, please correct me if I'm wrong, one of the issues with the XR1200 was that it was a totally different machine, built for that style and the flat tracking style, and yet it just did not sell well. And I want to say mostly because it's the price. They charged quite a bit, a little bit over what you could get a simple Sportster for. And most people who buy Harleys buy it for either small rip-around town bikes like the Sportster, or highway stuff like, say, the Ultra Classic or Road King, what have you. I believe Indian is in a unique position where they could make all sorts of different bikes, and they're nowhere near a victim of their own success like Harley is, and that when you buy a Harley, everyone has an image of what a Harley is. Indian, sort of the same, except everyone in the Indian fan base would actually be really excited to see like sport bikes, stuff like that. And you know, I'm not saying that the Harley people weren't. Looking at you, Eric Buell. But ultimately, they decided to cancel it out because they just weren't making the kind of profit they needed to. And that brings me to my last con on the Indian Scout FTR1200. I'm looking at the bike, I'm thinking, this looks awesome, please give us this, but please give us this at a price that is not too far away from the base Indian Scout. I want this to be affordable and attainable. My looking at the price factor is what's kind of scaring me a little bit, because look, if that's real carbon fiber, if it's come into production with full Öhlins adjustable suspension, oh man, you guys, it's going to be an expensive bike, much more so than the actual Scout. And I'm looking at the brake system for the FTR1200. It doesn't have what I wish even my Scout had, which is dual front discs up front. Now, it doesn't have to be anything special as long as they have good stopping power. You know, you don't need Brembos or Willwood, just something to get you a little bit more stopping power. I'm not trying to make you guys nervous about this bike not being a success, but the Harley-Davidson XR1200, it had dual front discs. I don't know if the stopping power on the XR1200 is that much better than a really good single disc setup. And despite the brake discs looking cool, like these little buzzsaw designs that mesh well with the type of rim that they're running, looks great. But I'm just questioning the stopping power here and the efficiency here. So that's my biggest concern here. I'm worried that this bike is going to be unsuccessful, and yet I'm really excited for it. I'm not saying I don't like the bike, because I think the bike looks gorgeous. I think it looks really fun. We're finally getting a Scout with a nice set of mid-controls and something we can really have fun with. But I think that's the same sentiment shared by the Harley crowd back when they tried that. Harley-Davidsons hold their value super well, especially the XR1200, mainly because they're rare, and that's the problem, you know what that's what I'm trying to get at. I just hope this bike saturates the market like Indian really needs to. Because despite the fun I have here, most of the small cruisers you see are still Harleys. And as long as we're comparing, what are you doing? Why aren't you flashing your brights? Is there a cop somewhere? Is that a house fire? What's going on? I don't know. We'll figure it out. And as long as we're comparing the two machines, I think the Scout FTR1200 is going to be... Dude, that guy was just pointing. What's going on? Nothing on my helmet. You guys would let me know if there was something on my helmet, right? Anyways, as long as we're comparing the two machines, I do think the Scout FTR1200, you know, as a general machine for its purpose, would beat the snot out of a Harley. And I'm not saying that just because I'm totally biased against Harley. I'm saying that just because it looks a hell of a lot lighter. It's got the Scout engine, which, you know, power-wise will beat the snot out of an Evo, or an Evo Sportster motor. Dual overhead cams versus push rods, more valves, more power. But yeah, guys, I think this bike's going to be killer. I think there's going to be a good aftermarket for it if it sells well, especially seats. It looks like it's just got a little foam pad on it to really be authentic. But I'll tell you what, man, I'm excited for it. I love this bike. I'm happy they're bringing it out. And just as I knew that they were going to bring it out as their next bike, I hope they push the line even further hereafter, because it's a great brand. I miss my hydraulic clutches, but damn if I'm not happy with this machine here. So what do you guys think about Scout FTR1200? You like the way it looks? You like the way it rides? You wouldn't know how it's going to ride. You're not going to know that until I test drive one for you. That's going to be fun. Stay tuned for that. But I think that's going to be it from me, guys. Can't wait to hear from Indian. Can't wait to hear from you guys. See you later.